What's up, everyone? We're all 49ers. I'm Grant Cohn. We got Jack Hammer, Jose Sanchez, and Maverick Pallack. And we got big news for the 49ers today. Not big news, but we got news. According to Albert Breer, Jimmy Garoppolo has a no-trade clause in his contract, which is interesting, for next year. It doesn't mean he can't be traded. It just means he has to sign off on any move. And as we've discussed recently, Kyle Shanahan said that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the quarterback here next year, which means nothing. Anyway, those are the updates. My question to you guys is, should the 49ers keep Jimmy Garoppolo next season? Jack, why don't you start?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I'll start. I don't think that they should keep him. I think that they need to move him if they're going to try to field a competitive team next year. Just looking at where they are currently with their salary cap situation, at only $19 million and having nobody even signed in their secondary, Trent Williams still to come back. I think the best move for them is to move on from him completely, free up that cap space, and then start to rebuild their team.
Jose.
Yeah, I definitely lean towards that way as well, just because of exactly what Jack said. There's so many pieces that are going to fall off the table for them in terms of free agents that they have to somehow pick up a handful of those free agents and bring them back. And one reason why they won't be able to is because that contract that Garoppolo has. So maybe somehow, some way, like, hey, you have no trade clause, unless he wants to, I believe, right? Unless Jimmy says, all right, cool, you traded me. If he gets permission, then hello, New England. Hello, my sunny baby. You know what we've already said before. You're on the page. So that's something. Hey, that's something to throw up out there. But yeah, I think it's definitely in that way. And they just sign someone in free agency that will be like even cheaper. So at least they could probably salvage a couple or a few of those pending free agents, especially on the defensive side of the ball that they need, because this is a team that just needs to still remain intact for the roster. It's just injuries have just completely decimated them.
All right, Nick Mullins, what do you think the Niners should do with Jimmy Garoppolo?
I think if he was $14 million on the cap or whatever, I think he would be more likely to be traded. But I think that contract's so undesirable to teams, and it's pretty much, I think, at least most people think he won't be back next year. So why would you be a team and go out and trade for him anyways without the trade clause? Because you know you'll be able to have him on the open market. So I think that's one thing for Garoppolo. I think he will probably be cut in the offseason. But I think that also they have to have other guys they would want at quarterback. They can't just cut them and then go like, okay, we'll figure it out. They don't have to cut them until after the June 1st release clause. I think if they cut them after June 1st, then it's $1.4 million in dead cap the next 2 years. So you save a lot of money. They can either draft a guy when's the draft? Late April, early May usually, so they can get a guy there. If they don't get the guy they want, they can always roll with Garoppolo. But I would rather have that cap space for Fred Warner.
Yeah, it seems to me if they keep Garoppolo, then they got to let someone go. And it's not going to be Warner. It would probably be Trent Williams. I don't see how they could afford Jimmy Garoppolo at 27, Warner at 20, and Trent Williams at 22. I don't see how they can afford all that. And if Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't stay healthy with Trent Williams at left tackle, wow, that's their best offensive lineman. I don't think it just doesn't seem like it's worth it. Now, if he were $14 million, sure, you could keep him. I just think he's becoming too expensive. To have a quarterback that expensive, I'm just against it on principle. It's nothing even against Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm against it on principle. You constantly have to sacrifice parts of your team. You can have the best quarterback in the league in Seattle. They're not going anywhere. We all know it. It's the same story every year with that team. So I'm just against the $27 million quarterback in general. I think Jimmy Garoppolo could have a good career down the line. I don't know if he'll get cut or not, but seems like who would want that contract? I agree with it. I mean, he could go to New England and revive his career, but I think he's done here. I think they got to move on. Also, one more thing. Kyle Shanahan has 5 years left on his deal. He signed through 2025. If ever he feels emboldened to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo, now is time. I mean, what are they going to do? Fire him? He can do whatever he wants. And if he really is unsatisfied with Jimmy G, now is the time to move on. He can do whatever the hell he wants. So,
he still never had his own quarterback, technically. That was John Lynch's guy.
Yeah, and if you got that 6-year extension, then now's the time. You have that cushion, you have that mandate. Get exactly who you want and stop complaining if you really feel held back by young James. So
young James.
All right. Okay. So we all agree the Niners basically should move on from Jimmy Garoppolo for various reasons. If they do, should they sign, trade for, or draft his replacement? And I know they're going to do a combination of things, but I'm talking starter next year. Should it be someone they trade for, like Matt Ryan or Matt Stafford, someone they draft or someone they sign, like Ryan Fitzpatrick, Dak, Maverick?
I think it depends. First off, I'm not saying Nick Mullins is going to be the starter next year, but I'm saying I think it depends on how Nick Mullins finishes the season, because if he does play well, I think that he would be your backup next year. If he doesn't play well, I think you need to completely overhaul the 3 quarterbacks on the roster and draft a guy, maybe not in the first round, but get a guy eventually in the draft. I'm tired of having Wilton Spate and Brock Ruder was the undrafted guy this year. They need a young guy to actually develop. Mullins was the guy they were developing. Now they need a new guy because Mullins is either going to be their veteran backup or not on the team next year. So they got to draft someone in the 7 rounds, and they got to get in a veteran, whether it's Tyrod Taylor or Jacoby Brissett, a veteran backup, not a starter, to kind of supplement a little thing.
Yes, and yes to each one. Whatever is on the table, they're going to explore the hell out of each one, man. They're going to be like coal miners looking for coal. Just what are our options here? We just need a quarterback somehow, some way. I think more so 100% they're going to draft no matter what, because whether it's in the first round, second, third round, they're going to look for someone, because you can find starters in the second or third round. It is possible. I could see them 100%. The more likely scenario, if they're looking for a starter, they move on Garoppolo, is free agency, like someone like a Fitzpatrick. I would have to really look specifically who's available to really think who's the fit here. But I don't even think if Mullins plays well down the stretch, that even matters, to be honest. I think Kyle knows what he has there, and he just wants someone that's more polished, more someone that he can actually lay faith to. I know Mullins knows the system and such, but, I think all that's a moot point compared to what the talent could be out there. You have someone more polished out there that can get you, that can maximize the potential on offense. And there's one thing that Kyle hates is if he doesn't have the right personnel out there, then he's just going to be absolutely livid.
Yeah, I think that what they're going to do is they're going to need to look at what Mullins does over these next couple of weeks, because I understand that Shanahan might think he knows what he has in him, but Mullins hasn't been able to play with Samuel. He's never had a snap this year with Samuel Mostert. He hasn't played with these guys, so we need to see what he does over these next couple of weeks to really see what they have in him moving forward. If they move on from Garoppolo, that entire QB room is left with nothing going into next year. So they really need to see what he does, because if he can go out and play well, even if they don't win, 5 out of the next 6, and to get to 9-7 or whatever, if they can go 4-2, he's a guy that I think you're going to want to bring back to compete with a veteran like, say, Fitzpatrick or somebody like that to fill that spot. I like Stafford, I like those guys, but they're too expensive. Moving on from Garoppolo for one of them is really keeping the same problem in place. So, I think I would like to have Mullins with a veteran to compete, and try to get one of those guys in the first round would be really nice.
Yeah, I agree with everything Jack said. I think it's interesting you guys want to see more from Nick Mullins. He's coming. I would want him back. I think he's the best. He's a perfect backup. He's not going to be expensive. They turned down a trade offer for him last year. You don't just give up on him. I think he comes back. Beathard leaves. Garoppolo leaves. And I really like basically what the Dolphins. I would do the Dolphins strategy. Sign Fitzpatrick, keep Mullins, draft the best available quarterback in round 1. It's working really well for Miami right now. There look like there's going to be a bunch of quarterbacks who will be there for the Niners in round 1 who are really legit first round prospects with talent. I would do that. And now you get Mullins, Fitzpatrick, and a first round pick, 3 quality quarterbacks for cheaper than Jimmy Garoppolo. What?
Hey, why are you saying the Dolphins strategy? The Chargers did that strategy too, man.
They did.
It's just not in the right way. They kind of help.
They just don't have as good of a coach as the Dolphins do.
No, I don't even know what Anthony Lynn does, but yeah.
Yeah. But you see these rookie quarterbacks really do very well unless they're drafted by the Bears, Jets, Giants, Jaguars. There's some things that you can't overcome as a young kid. But coming to the Niners, really would be set up for success until he goes to the meeting room with Kyle Shanahan on Mondays and just gets reamed.
And plus, at least if you start that rookie 4 to 5 weeks and down the line of next season, then you'd be assured more like, okay, yeah, our offensive line is more sturdy, because the Chargers and the Dolphins, like, they're not the best offensive lines, but at least they're sturdy enough to keep these guys clean. You're over there looking at Burrow who's getting lit up like every now and then.
I got one more point to make before we move on. Again, coming back to Kyle Shanahan and his contract that goes through 2025. If any coach in the league can draft a quarterback round 1 and start him right away and say, hey, we'll let him take his lumps and we want him to develop and we'll be good when we'll be good. We don't have to win right away. It's Shanahan. I mean, you think they're in a win now mode, but they could be in a reload mode. And what are they going to do? Fire him? He has the mandate to go get a quarterback and start him and develop him. I'd like to see him do it. I mean, it's not like his job's on the line unless I put him on the hot seat, which I could do at any minute, but I'm not going to. All right, let's move on. Okay. So agreeing that they probably should draft a quarterback. Should they draft him in round 1? And if so, should they trade up for the guy that they like the most, or should they let the board come to them? Jack.
When it comes to that, we'll have to see where they finish off. If they're still sitting at 14, then I think they're probably going to have the trade up to really get somebody that's going to be able to come in and probably play for them right away. But let's see what happens. If Mac Jones seems to be a guy that they really seem to like out of Alabama, they've spent a lot of time on, and he may be somebody that will fall into the middle of the first round where they wouldn't have to jump up for him. So I wouldn't be against them though making a big move, because that's the kind of position that quarterback's going to drive you in this league, and if they can make a big move for a quarterback, I think that's the direction you go.
I think honestly, even if they finish like 24th, they can even in the second round. I feel like they have shown they will move into the first round if they believe so. They did with Ayuk, they did it for Reuben Foster. So I think 100% if they like the guy and the board's falling the way they want, or depending on how they finish, they're gonna always. I think that's a very strong likelihood they're gonna go for that guy. And if it's a quarterback, who cares about how many picks you're giving up? You go get that guy on that rookie deal if you think he can help you win is the future. So if you have a guy that you like and it's going to work, you do that 100 times out of 10. There's no question. So I definitely 100% think they can do it and will do it.
My hesitation I think if there is a guy, they got to go get him. But my hesitation with going for a quarterback in round 1 is giving up a lot of draft picks when this team has a lot of holes, especially on the offensive line. And I think we've seen on a lot of teams with young quarterbacks, them getting beat up, them getting skittish. And I think we can even go back to Alex Smith, where getting injured those first couple of years, going through a bunch of offensive coordinators, delayed his development a lot and hurt it. And I think that is one thing that obviously the offensive coordinators with the Niners won't be an issue for whoever they draft, because Shanahan's going to be there forever. But having no offensive line could hurt the quarterbacks. We've seen Garoppolo struggle with it. We've seen Mullins struggle with the line. And we know what Beathard's problems are. So I think they need to at least have an early draft pick on an offensive lineman. They can't sell the whole draft for one guy.
Yeah, I mean, ideally they trade up for the guy they want, but as Maverick said, they got other needs, serious needs, offensive line more than one, and also cornerback. I mean, Jason Verrett, re-sign him, good player. Emmanuel Mosley, definitely re-sign him, good player. They don't have anyone who can match up with DeAndre Hopkins or DK Metcalf. That's a quarter of your schedule every year. They need a big cornerback. They can't come away from this draft and not get that. They got to get that and a quarterback. And I think they can get both, but I don't see how they do it if they trade up. They're in a tough spot. They got more than one big need. So it seems to me they may love Zach Wilson, but Zach Wilson might be a top 5 pick, a top 6 pick. I don't think the answer is to trade up for Zach. I think the answer is to stand pat wherever they pick 12, 15, 18 and take Kyle Trask, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, whoever the best one is available that's there, take them. And also sign Ryan Fitzpatrick, keep Nick Mullins, keep Raheem Mostert, put this guy in a great offense with a great coordinator and feel like he'll have a good enough chance to succeed. Doesn't mean you're going to give him the big Mondo contract in 5 years. You don't have to. I think you can do the process all over again. The Rams should have done that. Had they done that, they'd still be good. There's a lot. So anyway, but that's forward level thinking from Grant Code. Anyway.
All right. Dude, what the hell was that? A little
I really like Kyle Trask. Yeah, exactly. I really like Kyle Trask. I mean, he's not mobile. He's not going to protect himself. He'd get hit behind this offensive line. But, I mean, he's going to win the Heisman, I think. He's going to have like a Joe Burrow season. You could do worse. He's pretty good. I don't know. And then I haven't watched much of Mac Jones either. Jack, have you watched much of him?
I haven't. No, I have not seen much of him. I'm just basing my take off of what I'm hearing people say about him.
I like Kyle Trask. I like Trey Lance. I like Zach. I like them all. And they're cheap. That's the key. I mean, that's it. Anyway, okay. What? Bye.
Never mind.
Oh, that's what I thought. All right.
I was going to ask where you got that jacket from. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, that one.
Express for Men.
I like the Liar, I saw the tags. I saw Men's Warehouse on that.
Oh, you know. All right. The biggest offseason need for the 49ers, other than quarterback, we just touched on a few of them, but let's talk about this because they got other ones. Who's going first here? Maverick?
Yeah. I would say they need tougher offensive linemen, and I just think that Shanahan wants to be able to run the ball, And although Minnesota doesn't have the best offensive line, I think they actually have one of the more mediocre lines in the NFL. What they did do is they drafted a lot of linemen that are tough, and they run the ball with Dalvin Cook, and that's how they've turned it around this season. They were one of the worst in the NFL, and then starting with that Seattle game, even though they lost, they turned it around by just running with Madison and then Cook, and that's with their linemen. They have Drew Samia, who I think is one of the worst pass blockers in the NFL, but he's a mauler, and he's kind of like Mike Iupati in that sense where he'll give you a good run block, and I think they need more tough offensive linemen, especially on the interior.
Oklahoma, Drew Samia. I mean, only way I know is because I put him in like one mock draft one time. That's how I learned these players. Okay, Jose, you're up.
No, dude, Maverick was on money on that. Please draft an offensive lineman because all this reason why McGlinchey is skinny. Oh, Shanahan wants the speedster at the offensive lineman. They need maulers. All right, get out there. But I don't want to just piggyback off that. How about edge rusher? Like, let's invest in another edge rusher at some point down the line because D Ford is not there. And personally, as much as D Ford was a linchpin in that defense last year, you could see it this year and see how when he was off the field last year. I don't think it's specifically a D Ford trait. It's just can we get an adequate pass rusher on the edge trait? You know, it's as long as there's Bosa there and just someone adequate on the other side, someone that you can build around, someone like maybe not so much early pick because then at that point you're just gonna be hamstrung about who you're gonna pay for unless you're just okay. We're just like, all right, we'll use you for 4 years and now go away. So edge rusher is someone we want to consider for depth purposes as well, for start purposes, for all the reasons why. Because as you can see right now, when this defense doesn't have a pass rush as well as they're doing this season, they're doing a great job this season without it. But still, that pass rush is what can make this defense so elite. And without it, they're not the best. They're not the best in the league.
I think Mav hit it right. That's the number one area that they need to improve is going to be the offensive line because that's what's holding this offense back. Offense, we keep hearing about all the playmakers, but they can't make plays because the quarterback can't stay on his feet. So since Mav already said that one, I'm going to go cornerback. The 49ers have no DBs really coming back next year other than Moore and Ward. So they really need to focus on and look in that direction coming up in the offseason.
Yeah, I offensive line for sure, but I really think it's cornerback. And I guess, they're both equally there. They might have to get an offensive tackle. That's tough to find. But corners are just really, really tough to find. You got to really get one in the first round if you want a good one. Yeah. And the way I look at the Niners is Jason Verrett. Yeah, definitely re-sign him. I like him. He's good. Richard Sherman, no. Emmanuel Mosley, yes. But Mosley can't match up with DeAndre Hopkins and DK Metcalf. We've seen that. The Niners need a special corner to match up with those special players, just the way Arizona went and got Isaiah Simmons specifically for George Kittle. You have to account for these guys because they're beating you. You're losing games because you can't match up with these specific players. So there's a lot of good corners coming out this year. I don't know if the Niners want to take that with their first pick, with their second pick, but one or the other. I don't see any corners that they can get in free agency. So I'm going – it's every year I say corner, but it's a serious position. I mean it. I really mean it this time, guys. All right, real quick. We had a question. Let's address it real quick, the four of us. We talked about it briefly. I read that Jimmy has a no-trade clause. What will that affect a new quarterback for next season? Guys, how do you expect this no-trade clause thing to be handled this offseason? How about that? Jack, you first.
If the team that the Niners are looking to trade him to is somebody that he wants to go to, then he's going to go ahead and say, yeah, let's go. I think that they can get around that. It's in there really just to protect him from being sent to
Cleveland.
To Cleveland or
Jacksonville,
the Jets.
Yes.
So yeah. I think it's something they can get around if it's going to be a team that he feels comfortable moving to.
Cleveland isn't even that bad anymore. Anyway, Jose.
Stop. But anyways, I don't think it plays any more effect at all because exactly like Jack said, it's like it's pretty much just to detract him from going to a porous team. So that's why I was saying, like, hey, tap the New England shoulder, be like, what's up, little reunion going on here again. But other than that, they can always just cut him, and it's not going to be many repercussions, if at all. So I don't think it plays any effect. It's just straight up, just they're going to tell him, look, Jimmy, we don't think you're the future. We're going to explore our options. Do you like New England? Do you like this? We'll trade you. If not, later, because no one's going to sign you to the contract that you're worth right now. So for Garoppolo's sake, if they do tell him we're leaving you, he should get traded. And I think at that point, he might even consider somewhere worse playing off because he might not get paid that much again.
If people have the opinion of Garoppolo that it seems like a lot of people on 49er Twitter do not like Garoppolo, what makes you think that teams are going to surrender second-round picks? I just don't see a team trading anything of huge substance for Garoppolo. I think the way he would move on is a release. unless the Patriots get a real value and offer like a fifth, maybe a fourth for him. That'd be the only way I could see him being traded.
I don't think trading him is even based on just receiving. I think it's just moving off that contract, though. Not just to get like, all right, cool, we got a little draft compensation, but let's just get that contract off our books, please, God.
Well, it's possible that how Jimmy could use the no trade clause is if the Niners find a trade partner and it's anyone but the Patriots, Jimmy could say nope, 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 and force his way back to New England. If he decides that's where he wants to be, he can decline a trade to every single team, force the Niners to cut him, and then go back and sign in New England. He could do that. I don't know if it would be in his interest because he would have to get a new contract and it would be cheaper than the one he's on right now. But theoretically, if he decides the best place, the only place for him is New England, he can go there. So that's one way it could play out. But basically, he's not going to be on this team next year. At the Niners,
pretty much a basketball scenario.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, one more question. Don't all of you think there will be a surplus of overpriced vets that will come cheap because of cap? Other teams will suffer too. I think we end up with Mac. I don't know who Mac is, but the first two. Oh, Mac Jones. Oh, yeah,
I don't know.
Right.
Other than Mac, I don't know who else Mac will be a quarterback for.
That's an interesting point. I mean, we don't have to go around it in roundtable fashion, but what do you guys think about that? I mean, is there going to be this whole like class of vet that slips through the cracks because he's worth $5 million a year and no one wants to pay it, like Kyle Juszczyk?
Yeah, there's going to be guys like that, or guys like D Ford, who the Niners might move on from, who's getting $20 million right now. That might be teams are going to have to try to get down to that number. So there's probably going to be some guys out there that are going to be in that range.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so
I think that's perfect.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, I think that's perfect. Not even just that. How about just quarterback? I mean, how many teams are going to be looking for a quarterback next year? The Saints. I know that you got Taysom Hill back there, but I still, for some reason, am not 100% believing that. I don't care how much hype he's always getting. The Saints.
I don't believe in Jameis either, man.
I don't believe in Jameis either. The Colts, because the Rivers supposedly already signed a high school deal or whatever. How many of these teams are actually going to be in the field looking for a quarterback? And so I just see that the way that it could actually level out in their favor in terms of price. Ryan Fitzpatrick could see like, hey, as a winning team, maybe they just be straight up to them. Hey, man, you're going to get the Miami treatment. Here's $5 million. What's good? And he might just be willing to listen to that, depending on what else is out there, unless he wants his playing time, because he loves to play. So it just really depends on what's out there. But those are other teams I would consider. So that's actually a great point, a surplus of how many teams are out there and the availability of positions.
You're going to get the Miami treatment. Here's $5 million. What's good? I like that. That was good. All right, Maverick, what's up?
While he's wearing his Yeezys.
I like that.
I just think there's going to be a lot of veteran quarterbacks that might be moved on from just the way this season's gone. I think Chicago might be moving on from 2 quarterbacks. I know Grant likes one of them a lot more than everyone else in the world likes them, but
Trubisky? Get out of here.
I have loved Mitchell Trubisky since before he was in any mock draft. I cannot quit Mitchell Trubisky. I just can't quit that guy.
I've laughed.
I want to see him. I want to see him on a different team before I give up. I'm also not giving up on David Fales, who was my stone cold lock to become the next Jeff Garcia back in 2013. And I don't know if he's 30 years old yet, so I'm not going to write him off yet. But it's looking bad. Okay, let's move on. In my defense, Jim Harbaugh liked him too, so we were both right or wrong.
Oh yeah, he's such a quarterback whisperer, isn't he, Jim Harbaugh?
Hey, don't talk crap about San Jose State's finest, okay? All right.
I'm San Jose State's finest. What are you talking about?
All right. Let's. Did I have to answer this question? No.
Yes, you do.
I do. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see which players are cut that normally wouldn't be. A lot of quarterbacks, starting with Jimmy Garoppolo. That'll be interesting. And I don't know if the Niners have the cap space to take advantage because they're going to be creating space just to re-sign Warner and Williams. So we'll see. I don't have a good answer, but thanks you guys for trying. Okay. Let's give realistic. Let's give realistic. That's my evil laugh. Let's give realistic expectations for
trash
McKinley. Yeah, it's bad. Tak McKinley. They picked him up off waivers. He's on the team. He was a first-round pick. He's had sacks in his career. What are the expectations for him? Who goes first?
Nice. Eric Armstead's had sacks in his career too.
If I'm up, I think McKinley will provide a couple good plays, but I think there's he goes missing a lot, and I think it's the same thing I had problems with signing Jadeveon Clowney. And if we touch on Vic Beasley, I know you want to. It's the same thing I'm going to say about him is when he goes missing, he's a problem on defense, and that hurts. And I just think he'll get 2 sacks, 3 sacks maybe, but then he'll have a lot of plays where people are freaking out on Twitter.
Like Mike McGlinchey level freak out, or
No, well, it's hard to match that. It's hard to match.
Okay, you're right. All right, okay.
It's hard to match. I'd say, I'd say I wouldn't really expect too much from him. I mean, I'm trying to think of how many snaps did Jordan Willis even play last week? Did anyone clock that by chance?
He's averaging 20 over the last 3 weeks.
He's averaging 20, but how much did he specifically play? That
I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, that's what I want to know, because it's like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do over here, interrupting. Shut up, Grant. Tak McKinley. All right, what are we gonna expect from him? Chris Kasarik, if there's any coach I believe in who's gonna like squeeze the much potential out of someone, it's gonna be Chris Kasarik right there. McKinley's drop. He played 19 last week. Okay, that's a nice snap count. So how much he's going to take away from Jordan Willis there, per se, is going to be a telltale sign. Luckily, he has the bye, but hopefully, the last time he was successful was 2018. So if you can even just rekindle something of that, so God forbid that they can get Eric Armstead some adequate pass rushers, because this kind of is what the reason why they got Jordan Willis and why they're getting Tak McKinley is just so they can boost Eric Armstead's numbers, because he's not doing anything. So, I mean, as much as they want to believe it's just all double teams. So hopefully they can at least get some depth pieces, because who was it that they cut? Julian Taylor? Some of these surprise cuts a little bit, in my opinion, that they did. So, you bring in Tak, Jordan Willis, a lot of these are just going to be a platoon system at this point.
Mm. If McKinley can come in and get 2 sacks like Mav's thinking that he might be able to, that's going to be awesome for the 49ers, because that would put him second on the defense in sacks on the season. So, I don't know. We'll see, because they definitely need to have at least somebody that's going to be able to give them some pressure off the edge. I mean, right now, a lot of times they're not even really getting in there at all. So let's see if he can generate a little bit of pass rush and maybe a little bit back and forth between him and Willis to get that rolling. Yeah,
I don't know what the realistic expectations for him are for this season, because he has a groin injury, and that's why he got his physical failed with the Bengals. The Niners will pass anyone's physical. I mean, really, they don't care. They believe in their ability to rehab people. So I don't know if he's going to play this year. He might, but I think the vision for him is that next year he'll be the replacement for Dee Ford. He'll be playing on his 5th year option. He'll be in a contract year. He'll be on a good team. And he'll have that Eric Armstead contract year bounce playing for Chris Kasarik. And maybe he will. I think, he's from Richmond. He wanted to get the hell off the Falcons because they're a losing team. He might be one of these guys who's really motivated to play for the 49ers. If they're
49ers
good.
are a losing team.
Yeah, that's a good point. If things don't go horribly wrong right away. So I think he's I think he's the Dee Ford replacement. I think it's pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they think they can rehab people. It's just they have an infatuation for injured players. I don't know what it is. It's like
in Tak McKinley's defense, he was born in Oakland like me, and he went to UCLA like me. So he's gonna be great, guys. Just give him a chance.
My question with McKinley, though, is if Saleh does leave, and I know a lot of people want Dan Quinn or Raheem Morris to be the defensive coordinator next year for that. I don't think Tak McKinley has the best relationship with them. I don't know what the issue is there. So if they are going Morris, who knows if McKinley's even back for next year?
Well, maybe that's an indication they wouldn't go with Morris or Quinn.
It's going to be Kasarik.
It's going to be me. Are you kidding? I've been putting in all the work. My resume is flawless. There's no question about it.
I think you're more of an offensive-minded coach, not defensive-minded.
Speaking of former Falcons defensive ends, should the 49ers sign Vic Beasley? The guy had 15 sacks in a season once upon a time. And he was on the same team as Kyle Shanahan, so they know each other. They probably have exchanged Christmas cards. What do you think? Edible arrangements.
They don't have much cap room to be making moves. So with Beasley, I don't know what he's looking for in terms of money right now. They only have about
looking for a job
in face, and I don't know what he's looking for, and if it's a cash thing that's keeping him out, or if it's just the fact that he's coming in for workouts and teams aren't liking what they're seeing. So,
don't touch him.
I'd probably pass on that one.
Is he a Mike McGlinchey guy who just had the worst quarantine workout regimen of all time and just came into the season out of shape? Because I haven't been following there's got to be other Mike McGlincheys out there. He can't be the only.
Dude, he went AWOL on the Titans in the beginning of the season.
Is that right? He went AWOL?
He was missing. He was missing. They didn't have.
He pulled Robbins.
They literally said, we don't know where he's at. And then he just showed up. He just showed up, and they're like, I don't know.
He's not on the team right now. Hey, I still like the way.
So, no, Keep him away. This guy has not been good ever since that.
I cover the NFL for a living, and you can tell. All right, Maverick, tell me more about Vic Beasley that I don't know.
Well, I was going to say, how many guys with effort problems can you put on the defensive line?
Yes,
I think
yes.
The guys on the team already have. There's some guys on the team that have questions. I don't know if you should keep bringing in those guys. I'm more for if you're in the middle ground of contention and working for next year is to get guys in that are high effort guys that can provide some upside.
Look, all I know is he had 8 sacks last year. I mean, I don't know what's going on with Victor Beasley and what happened. Maybe he had an excuse. Maybe he had an excused absence and the note was lost. I want to know. Look, can't you just offer him a spot on the practice squad and look, say, Vic, you got no options right now. People seem to really be down on you. I like you. I don't know what you did. That's between you and God. I want to give you a special spot on the practice squad. What do you say? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, who could pass up a practice squad spot on a 4-6 team on the West Coast? Who wouldn't want that? So they can go live. Can you afford to live in Santa Clara on a practice squad salary? That's the problem. I don't know if you can. Santa Clara's expensive, and the practice squad is like $850 an hour. So I don't know. But
I'm assuming he might still have a little bit of cash left over from when the Titans cut him, because I think they just cut him and just said, screw it. I don't care if we got to pay you. You're a toxic player at this point. So practice squad, sure. Why not, Grant? I'll never say no to practice squad.
Can't be worse than Deion Jordan, yo. Can you give him Deion Jordan's contract?
I mean, the fact they haven't brought up Deion Jordan's a huge telltale sign.
All right, hold on. Should the 49ers sign Jordan Howard? And before you guys all say, no, which is a good point. I see what you're saying there. He is a free agent, not injured, has had a Pro Bowl season, scored a lot of touchdowns in the league. Is he worse than Tevin Coleman and Jerick McKinnon? I don't know if that makes him good, but okay, that's the case for him. Jordan Howard or anyone else, any free agent running back, Marshawn Lynch, anyone, Kevin Barlow.
I'll take a look at Kevin Barlow, honestly. I think he probably has more success rushing the ball this year, at least. I think Jordan Howard's averaging 1.8 yards per carry. I know a lot of that's inside the 5-yard line, so that does hurt your yard output. But he's been leaped, at least this year. Myles Gaskin obviously won the starting job. He's a former undrafted free agent. And then Savon Ahmed took his job last week. Matt Breida got past him. I believe Patrick Laird is the other running back, the Cal guy. And he's taken some snaps from him. Jordan Howard's pretty much a red zone. You're on the 2-yard line. You need him to get those 2 yards guy. And the 49ers don't really have trouble doing that. They have trouble getting into the red zone, not succeeding from the 5-yard line on. So I think Jordan Howard doesn't fit a need.
Jordan Howard doesn't fit a need. God, what a slap in Jordan Howard's face. Jordan Howard's watching this right now, by the way. Okay, no, you're right. Or maybe. What do you think, Jose?
No, stay away from him. And I actually like Jordan Howard in Chicago. I feel like, especially towards the end, they didn't give him enough of a fair shot. But at this point in his career, what is this guy? Hey, no, man. He got beat out by all those players, and you're gonna expect him just to come in and just be like, oh, hey guys, I'm just gonna over here and steal some snaps. Like, no, he's not better than Tevin Coleman. I'd rather you just roll Kyle Juszczyk in the backfield, let him get some carries. Isn't he averaging like 6 yards per carry or something? And I know they're all fullback drives, but maybe that's what you got to do. Just start calling fullback drives every play.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'd rather see him stick with who's it, Austin Walter. And I'd rather see them go ahead and give him some carries. He's got some speed, and I would rather go that direction than bring somebody else in and try to fit him in here in the next few weeks.
That's fair. I mean, the way I would look at Jordan Howard is they have to beat the Rams on the upcoming Sunday. If they're going to make this run, the season isn't over. They're not giving up on the season. They got to find a way to beat the Rams. And we've already, Shanahan's already said, don't expect to see a lot of Raheem Mostert and Deebo Samuel and Richard Sherman. It's not fair to just throw them in and say, carry us after being out for a month and a half. So if you sign Jordan Howard to the practice squad and called him up for one game, and that way, instead of having your running backs be Jerick McKinnon and Austin Walter, I think it's pretty much you're not going to beat the Rams if those are your running backs. Or just you can't run the ball enough unless Austin Walter just pulls a Jeff Wilson Jr. and goes crazy. We've seen Jerick McKinnon. He can't run the ball enough. So bring in a third guy to have a third guy. He's on your practice squad. You're not giving him any money. And then when Mostert and Coleman and all these guys are come back and actually are ready to contribute, then, don't call up Jordan Howard. Just keep him on the practice squad. I think it's like I don't know. I mean, again, it's $8.50 an hour you pay these guys. So it's not my money. Just like, Jed. You give him a special parking spot and a space in the practice squad, and I think Jordan Howard would be happy to do it. I don't know.
I think they're pretty much just screwed at that position, though, until Mostert comes back, because you can just see how night and day it is when he's out there and anyone else compared to anyone else, and just makes me think, shame on the people who are against us that didn't believe Mostert was just worth a little $2 million kicker. I mean, come on, look how horrid that running game is without him.
I feel like there's been 2 games the Niners really couldn't compete in this year because they didn't have enough running backs. Week 4 against the Eagles, and then this past game. They just didn't have enough running backs. Yeah. That shouldn't happen anymore. There are bodies on the street that have credentials. I mean, this guy is totally healthy, 26 years old, a Pro Bowler, 2 times 1,000-yard rusher. Come on, man. For a game, you give him like $7.50 and a cheeseburger. I hear he likes double doubles. So there's an in and out right there, or 5 guys. There's a negotiation. You call them up and see, can I give you some fries? And So anyway,
that happens better.
I feel glad that I
get Joel Hampton back. How long has he been out of the NFL? 5 years?
Marcus Lattimore. All right. Who is one player who deserves more playing time over the final 6 games? Usually, when teams go into the bye week, they take stock of themselves and decide who has been playing too much and who hasn't been playing enough. Who hasn't been playing enough? I have no idea who starts.
I thought it was Maverick. I thought it was Jack.
It could be Jack.
Yeah, on this one, I'm going to say I kind of agree with what Mav wrote today as far as Willis, but I also go along earlier. I said it a little bit earlier. I think it's going to be a combination of Willis and McKinley, really to see what those 2 can bring to the table and which of those is the guys that you might want to bring back next year. I think that's the direction that they need to go on that side of the ball.
I like it.
Kyle Juszczyk, please utilize him. Come on, man. Why do you not just line him up straight up in the slot? Why is he not being a primary target in the offense to get the ball to? It's just beyond me. It feels like I really been trying. I should have been looked this over, but I feel like compared to last year, compared to how many times he's gotten the ball compared to this year, it's really declined. It's taking a hit, at least impact wise, just watching on the TV. I don't know if he's just protecting Kyle Juszczyk in terms of his cardio, in terms of just, hey, he's doing enough in terms of lead blocking and such that we don't want to overwork him, especially maybe they're the paranoid mindset because he is known to get some injuries and his team is already rid with so many injuries as it stands. But I just don't understand.
What they're doing? You know what they're doing? Conspiracy theory time. They're driving his value down so they can resign him. Hey, man, you didn't have as many touches this year. Hey, you're getting a little older. We still like you, though. But, the business, your numbers a little down. That's what I think.
But even when they looked like Hope was doing good, I mean, that just makes sense. I think if Hope looked like even worse than it was, but even like the first 4 or 5 games, it's like he still wasn't getting used enough where, the sky was the limit at that time. I mean, I don't know. I like that theory enough, too. It actually makes sense. But, man, how petty you got to be to do that?
Petty. Maverick.
Jordan Willis has won 1.5 sacks in the last 3 games. That's besides Kerry Hyder, the only edge rusher, I believe, with even a half sack in those 3 games. I know there's some guys getting paid more than him to do that, but Jordan Willis is producing. And the other guy I would like to see is, because I have no clue what his talent level is, he's not being thrown the ball, is Charlie Warner. And I would just like to see him involved a little more. Why did they draft him to be the blocking tight end? I think he's getting like 10 snaps a game. Levine Toilolo was getting more than that, I think, in that role. So is he not producing as a blocker? Is he not a good enough receiving decoy to run him out there? I want to see him. We didn't get a preseason. I just want to see him play, especially if they lose to the Rams, where the season is probably close to on ice as it can be. I would like to see Werner get a couple more snaps.
Those are good names. I'm just writing some names down here so I don't forget them. I got 3. 1, Austin Walter. I would like to see him. I think when he's been on the field, he's shown good things and deserves more opportunities. Running back, Austin Walter. 2, I'd like to see Kevin White. If River freaking Craycraft can get a start in 51 snaps, I think Kevin White can get like a little more. I think he got 1 snap this year or something like that. I'd like to see Kevin White, wide receiver. And then finally, I want to see Justin School one more time, because there is a possibility that Trent Williams won't come back, and they got to know if there's anything there with Justin School. We know he can't block Zadarius Smith. That is proven. Or Preston Smith. But does he have anything, or do the Niners really need to overhaul the offensive tackle room? Because I don't know what they got at right tackle either. They should probably get a little more data on Justin School before entering the offseason, if possible. That's the last one I can think of. Anyone else? Not really?
I mean, we kind of know what School is now, though. We saw the way he played in his last game is the same way we saw him finish in his last start in 2019. Yeah. You know, on the Juszczyk thing, the one thing that I've been thinking about with him is we're paying that guy $5 million a year. I remember when the 49ers were winning Super Bowls and getting NFC Championship games for 3 years in a row with a guy that they drafted as a defensive end out of college, who then when he got hurt in the middle of the season, they brought another defensive tackle over to play fullback. If you guys remember that in 2013, so that's true. That's a there's been a lot of money there for a guy that they just don't use.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, the Niners. Who they put back there? Was it Isaac Sopoaga for a little bit?
Tukafu, didn't he get back there?
Tukawafu, DeMarcus Dobbs. Yeah, you can get guys. That's true.
Tukawafu and Bruce Miller was a DN come out of Central Florida. So
you don't have to spend $5 million a year on a blocker who goes back and forth in motion. You're spending on touches, and they don't give them the touches.
Nope.
But
how about punt return? Just seeing anyone of substance if you want to go with Richie James, use Richie James every time. If you want to go with Ayuk, use Ayuk. Don't keep bouncing different guys in and out, especially Trent Taylor, because if he's a fair catch machine, why isn't he catching the ball on fair catches?
Yeah, speak up, Trent. Ken Webster didn't hear you, and there's no one in the stadium. Yeah. Okay. I have 2 more questions, and they're both on the defensive backfield. Richard Sherman could be healthy enough to play against the Rams. He hasn't played since week 1. If you were the coach, what would be your plan to reintegrate him into the defense? Keep in mind, this is a defense that is number 5 in the league without him. So what do you do? How do you handle this? He's one of your leaders.
I'd say in zone situations, you get him out there. He can have the start for the stat sheet, but I think in man situations especially you got to go with Mosley and Verrett and ease Sherman back out there in favorable zone situations. That's all I have to say. I don't know how well he can run. I don't know. The injury, I guess, seemed worse than a lot of people thought initially. So I'd like to ease him back in.
Does he need to start for his ego? What's that about?
Yeah.
Probably something in his contract, some money thing. You think he negotiated it.
Well.
Ego, contract, and just because I think the coaches are just going to give it to him too, because I don't see no way they're going to ease him into this. Otherwise, they would have just eased him in last week. So you got the bye. He already started working. So I feel like he's just going to get pretty much almost a good, nice full duties, aside for the man coverage ones might be the one that are going to be the real question mark. And they would just kick in Emmanuel Mosley in the slot because K'Von Williams has already been ruled out against the Rams. So you need someone more adequate, more out there to cover a lot of those slot receivers between Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, who they will throw a nice flurry of punches and routes out there. So I think Sherman's definitely still going to be out there, a good handful of a good hefty full of plays out there.
Yeah, I agree. If they're in the mode of where they're going to think that they still have a shot at getting to the playoffs this year, if they can run the table, they're going to come out against the Rams, and they're going to. I'd be surprised if they don't put Sherman out on the boundary side with Red on the other side. I think that's what would give them. They think might be giving them the best. These are our best players. Let's throw them out there. Let's see if he struggles. Mosley comes in and saves the day.
Fair. What I would do is not start him. I would play him on third downs. I would start Mosley and move Mosley into the slot and bring Sherman on the field for third downs. But really, even that scares me because I don't think Robert Saleh can call man coverage nearly as much with Richard Sherman in the game than he can without him. And I think that's been the key to the system. That's been the key to the defense this year. The fact that they can call so much man, because when you call man, you're free to blitz. And the Niners really need to bring blitzes pretty regularly to get pressure. If you bring in Richard Sherman, you can't blitz as much. You can do zone blitzes, but that's not bringing 5 players as much, bringing 4 and dropping people out. Richard Sherman's numbers will be good, but I think the Niners, you'll see the completion percentage that they give up will go up. The first downs per game will go up. Their defense rating will go down. So I don't necessarily think that it's going to be a good thing to bring him back. I think what's made the defense, the 2020 defense, what it is their ability to disguise coverages, to man up with most receivers and tight ends. And while Richard Sherman can still play zone coverage as well, I think he would take away a lot of what's making them good as a defense. Again, with Richard Sherman, he's great in zone, but I think a lot of what propped him up last year was the pass rush. If you're only going to play zone coverage, having a dominant 4-man pass rush saves you. If you don't have that dominant 4-man pass rush, you're going to get killed by double moves anyway. That zone coverage is going to break down, or you're going to have to blitz and you're going to get left on an island. So I just don't see, I don't know. He's great to have as a reserve, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is a team that's winning with coverage. I don't see it. I don't see it. But
I don't know. If you go back and watch that first Rams game, though, this was a team that should have been beat with the coverage that they were putting out on the field. If the quarterback just hits the guys that are running open, or the receiver catches the ball in the end zone when it hits them in the hands.
yeah,
So,
that's a good point. That's a good point. If you allow me to retort, if I remember, it's been a few weeks. The people who got burned were Jaquaski Tart and Marcel Harris was the Packers. It was definitely Tart, right?
Yes.
Well, maybe more out there will help. But you're right. Good point. They're going to have to play Richard Sherman at some point. You can't just not play him. It's just going to be interesting. Do you just give him a full workload week 1, or do you say, hey, Richard, it's been 3 months. Let us use you sparingly and work you back in, and maybe he'll sign off on that, or maybe his ego will be like, I'm sorry, my ego will not allow me to come off the bench. Sorry about that. I'm going to have to start. And they're going to be, all right, Richard, we tried. Last question. Should the 49ers move Marcel Harris to linebacker permanently? They moved him to linebacker against the Saints and really had the best defensive performance of the season. The best thing I've seen in a long, long time. They called it dime. They didn't say that he was a linebacker. They just basically said they were using dime. Should they stick with that, or I don't know? What's the future of Marcel Harris?
I would go ahead and stick with it. It's something that they did, as we talked about the other day in 2017 with Eric Reed in the second half of that season. Go ahead and keep running it. He plays like a linebacker. He's faster than the other guys that they can put in that spot. Just keep rolling with it, and playing in tight like that kind of helps too, because his problem is always that he's taking bad angles. Well, now he's a lot closer now, so he doesn't have those angles quite as much.
Point.
I wouldn't say indefinitely stick with it, but I think that's just something to be at the disposal when they need be, because it's also been driving me nuts about like, hey, we have 2 safeties out there, so we can't find a spot for Tavares Moore. Like, yes, you can. You can just roll him out there, take one of the slot corners or one of the linebackers out. But now Marcel Harris, I've always viewed him as better, like capable in coverage, but you don't want him there per se. You want to mix him up so he can stay up front to keep the offense guessing. Like, is he dropping back? Or is he? That's how he got burnt on that Packers play, because he was playing up because he thought he was going to give Rodgers a different look. But you're not going to fool Rodgers with that come on, you're Marcel Harris. But he played so much better. And that was a smart decision. Kamara is not a bruiser back. He's someone that, hey, one cut, I'm gone. So that was perfect, because Marcel, if you put Shahir out there, Kamara would have had 150 plus yards out there. So I love that adjustment. I love that Shannon actually allowed Saleh to do that. But you kind of think about it. Well, it took them an injury for them to actually play these guys. So it's kind of funny how that's what they needed to be. So definitely keep it in the playbook for them to use going forward.
I like the dollar defense, but I would use it situationally, like they did with New Orleans, where New Orleans uses a lot of receivers. Alvin Kamara is probably their best player, and he's used out of the backfield. And then they have a lot of tight ends that are athletic and can move. So I like Harris as the linebacker there. But against the Rams, where I think they strive running the ball first using Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown, I do like the idea of having bigger bodies, especially since the Rams use 2 tight ends a lot. They use Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee, and then even Johnny Munn gets out there when he's healthy. So I do like using bigger linebackers against that team. But then when they play the Bills, where they're going to be throwing the ball deep a lot, I do like having Harris as a linebacker in that sense.
Yeah, there are probably certain matchups where you'd rather have a bigger body like Al-Shaair at outside linebacker than Harris. Maybe. But the way I look at Harris is he's a strong safety or a linebacker or a weak side linebacker. He can play either one. And the thing on the Niners is, if you're the strong safety on this team, you got to play a lot of free safety too, because you're playing next to Jimmy Ward, who's getting paid a lot of money, and he plays in the box a lot. He plays a lot of coverage on third down on tight ends. So where Marcel Harris would get in trouble is when he was playing free safety. He would take bad angles, bad instincts in center field and give up big plays. He can't play there. So to me, he can't play strong safety in this scheme and on this defense as long as Jimmy Ward's on the field, because it means he's playing a lot of free. So you can get rid of that problem by playing him at linebacker. I think he's a good linebacker. I like it. As long as Jimmy Ward's on the team, I think his running mate should be Tavarius Moore, because again, that guy's got to be in center field a lot, and he's the one with the most range. I don't see any glaring weaknesses in his play, and he is a playmaker, or so far he has been. So I like the idea of Marcel Harris at like weak side line. Well, I guess he would be strong side linebacker, whatever. One of the outside linebacker spots and Moore at the other safety. I like that. I guess you would call Tavarius Moore the strong safety because Jimmy Ward, like his ego, again, he needs to be the free safety. He can't be nickel, can't be strong, got to be free. Fine, whatever you want, whatever you want to call it. You're that. Moore, you're the other one. Harris, you're down in the box. I like that. So that's what it's going to be. I'll call Robert. I'll let him know. And told him, love all 49ers. I don't have any more questions unless you guys have another topic you'd like to talk about. Politics. No. Just kidding. That was all right, guys. Let's have a really nice afternoon. And that's all I got. We'll be back tomorrow. Some of us won't. But the Niners. They're not going to lose this week. They're not going to lose this week. The losing streak ends on Sunday. So you got that to look forward to. Everyone, thanks for watching. Take care.